something, like we know there's got to be a minimum effective amount, and then there must be a maximum recoverable amount. Like that's a thing, and then in between this is kind of the golden zone where we're going to get the most gain.
And what's your take on the volumes parameters of Dr. Mike? Because you're obviously very familiar with the parameters of Dr. Mike, like MEV, MAV. Myself, my personal experience, I started with his recommendations, and at first it was very, very easy to me. And I don't know if you're familiar with Abel. He's also Abel, I think you know him, yeah. He also recorded a video about this, and he said at first, like, it's so easy, and he prefers to go on a more stable journey than to go easy, moderate, and then hard and deload.
Cool. So I think both approaches can work tremendously well. I really like the volume landmarks in terms of a concept. I think they're fantastic because, I mean, it's just putting a name to something. Like we know there's got to be a minimum effective amount, and then there must be a maximum recoverable amount. Like that's a thing, and then in between this is kind of the golden zone where we're going to get the most gain. So I think as a concept, they're fantastic because you can really then kind of look at programs and pick them apart and kind of view it like that. Now, I have traditionally, I always was just at a static set numbers. I never really thought about the volume landmarks. It just wasn't something I would do. However, over the last, I don't know how many years now, 3 years or so, I have been utilizing, starting at my minimum effective volume, moving and kind of auto-regulating my set numbers up, and then I eventually hit maximum recoverable volume, deload, and repeat. And the results I've got over the last 3 years have outbeaten anything I could have got previously. They've just been fantastic, and that systematic process for me, for myself, for my clients, has just worked wonders. So the fact that it's worked so well is one thing, but also when Mike describes it and the logic behind the system, I can't falter it, and therefore I find it very difficult not to adhere to it. It's difficult to initially get to grips with it because it is easy at first, and it's meant to be. Minimum effective volume, minimum effective intensity, it's pretty easy training, but it soon gets hard. And what I found is that the weeks at the end before I then deload are harder training than I ever could have done if I just maintained a static volume. And so I really like kind of starting out with little and moving up to extreme amounts. And some of this kind of coincides with some of my reading from some of the old periodization texts with Vergoskowski and people like this, where they talk about kind of more so advanced trainees need to go to very extreme levels to see a productive result and outcome. And now they're not specifically saying it's a hypertrophy thing and they have to really push their volume, but I've certainly found my results just go so swimmingly when I've gone through this system. And for clients, that step-by-step process is just such a nice way to do things. So I have really enjoyed them, but I don't always find with every client that they can escalate their volume as high as what they may seemingly be able to. So their minimum effective volume and their maximum recoverable volume might be very close, even if they're like novice or intermediate. And this is literally just down to lifestyle. They may not have time, or they may not have the recovery capacity because they've just got so much else going on in their life. So whereas on paper you think, oh, their minimum effective volume, they're a novice, they must have a big amount that they can add week to week to progress. You find actually we have to keep it static, because whereas they should be adapting and progressing very quickly, the kind of recovery capabilities limit their adaptation. So they almost look like they're having advanced progression, but it's just limited by the fact that they have limited time, they have limited resources to put towards it. So that's the way I've utilized it, and I found personally it to be better, or the results I've seen have been better with the systematic approach. I really like the system that it kind of provides for you.
Yeah. Interesting. Maybe I'll give it a shot with my second mesocycle this year.